Next up, we've got Pasindu Liyanage. He'll be talking about engineering excellence in the AI era, how to overcome challenges, drive innovation, and shape the future. Over to you, Pasindu.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Really excited to be here today. So before I start my session, I just want to get a quick pulse of the room, just to understand the audience a bit better. Can I get a quick raise of hands? Who here is basically from like a development track? Any engineers, architects, tech leads, anyone over here? All right, perfect. Anyone from like a product or a program management side? Any technical program managers, product owners? Right, perfect. Anyone from like a leadership or like a strategic perspective who's joining here today? Nice, awesome. That's a great mix that we have here. And just one last question before I start off. Are any of you guys here already working on some sort of AI or Gen AI initiative inside the organization? Yes? No? Okay, so we have about 50% of the participants who's already working on generative AI. Cool. So with that, let me start the session by setting a bit of context. So as we all know, AI has been there for quite some time. We used to have our analytical models, predictive models, forecasting models and all that. We had a bit of computer vision, bit of NLP. But in 2022, when ChatGPT was launched, this entire landscape transformed. Like before ChatGPT, AI for us was to do with a lot of numbers, a lot of data, basically something to do with very complicated algorithms. But suddenly, after ChatGPT, AI could write songs. AI could explain quantum theory, and AI could even pass medical exams. So with this, all the boardrooms all around the world started looking at how you can incorporate AI into their operations. Now, at this point, we even started thinking AGI, the artificial general intelligence, or the human level intelligence that we are all after, was quite within reach. Now, fast track 30 months in, we are in 2025. Situation is a little bit different. So this is actually a meme that I saw today in the morning when I was going through LinkedIn. So basically when ChatGPT came up, there was a lot of expectations. We thought everything's going to be powered by AI. But after 30 months, AI is definitely everywhere. We have a lot of money getting funded into AI applications. But in terms of value, specifically for enterprises, are we still there? So what we see generally in the industry is that even though there's a lot of AI applications that are going on, we're still struggling to unlock the exact potential of AI. So there was this research done by Boston Consulting Group just a few months ago. And from that, they've evaluated thousands, some of the largest companies in the world. And from what they got from this research, out of the 1,000 companies, about 98% of them are already working on something related to AI. But the interesting thing is, only 22% of those organizations or the initiatives, they've been able to move it from like a POC level into production. And unfortunately, only 4% of these solutions are generating significant value for that particular organization. So this is sort of the situation that is out there right now. So the objective of the session is basically to understand why this is happening, what are the reasons behind it, and what we can do to overcome some of these challenges. So with that, let's just take a quick step back and try to understand what really happened in this Gen AI space for the past 30 months. So we all know in 2022, ChatGPT was launched, late 2022. Then soon after that, all the major tech players understood this is like the next big thing. So they all wanted to get in the bandwagon. So if you get the likes of Google, Meta, Anthropic, they all started creating their Gen AI models to get into the game. And with all this excitement, all the companies, almost all of us, we started playing around with these capabilities. We started building applications. So it was very interesting times. And then we actually faced our first roadblock in this Gen AI wave. So that is where we started to realize whatever the information that generative AI models are giving us, however how creative or very cool that is, they are not always factually correct. So then we got this whole concept of Gen AI hallucination coming out. So one of the famous examples was the Air Canada story. You guys might have heard about it. Air Canada, at very early in the generative AI race, they launched a chatbot in their website with generative AI, which could basically answer questions based on their policies and frameworks. So one gentleman went there, asked a question about the refund policy, but very confidently said, you can apply for a refund within 90 days after your flight. But in reality, Air Canada didn't provide any refunds after the flight has taken off. So this incident actually went into court. This gentleman took it to court. And then court evaluated the situation. And they ruled against Air Canada, saying, if the bot is integrated, if it's in your website, then you have to honor what the bot is saying. So with this kind of things happening, we had a bit of a minor fallback in the generative AI, sort of like the wave or the landscape. But soon after, we came up with a concept called RAG, the retrieval augmented generation. So this is what's powering most of the generative AI applications today. All the assistants that you see, all the co-pilots. Basically what happened here is, now, if you take a generative AI model, if you take something like ChatGPT, when you go and ask a question, it has been trained on some sort of data, it's been taught some data, so it's going to give you answers based on the data that it has been trained on. So based on what it knows, based on the memory. But with retrieval augmented generation, what we did was, rather than just asking it to give answers based on the information that it has, based on the memory, we gave it the information also. So we said, so in the Air Canada incidents, these are the documents that we have on our policies. These are the information that talks about the refund policies. When a user asks a question, you first go and look at your documents. Don't just give something from your memory. You go and look at the documents, see if that information is there, then give an answer for the question. So that is what was implemented with RAG, and we were able to resolve the situation with whole hallucinations. It were mostly like 95% of a certain extent, but then it really accelerated the developments from there. So with RAG, we built in a lot of applications. 2023, 2024 was very exciting with all these different things coming up. We had a lot of co-pilots and a lot of applications being built. Then we faced our next roadblock. So that is basically the generative AI maturity wall. Now, with RAG assistants and RAG bots, we built certain applications, we exposed it to our users, but then we started asking the question, is that enough? Is that giving us the value? So you have a bot which can give answers based on some documents. Definitely it's pretty cool. I mean, it makes the information access very convenient. But is that all we need? Because it's definitely the information was already there. User had to go and find it. But now through the bot, we made it a bit easier. But is that all we can do? Or is there anything else that we can use to create value? So that's where we started hitting this maturity wall. And then this concept of AI agents came out. Have you guys heard about AI agents? Seen any LinkedIn posts? I mean, that's one of the hottest topics out there. So right now, with what AI agents, what we are trying to do is, we're trying to see not just get information from documents, not just have RAG bots, but how can we access more knowledge sources? How can we access databases? How can we do actions? So that's what we're trying to do with AI agents. And the latest thing that is out there, if you go on LinkedIn in the morning, you'll see about 100 posts on this, is the MCP, the Model Context Protocol. So that is also, again, a new thing that is there in the space, which is to standardize the way that generative AI agents talk to different data sources. So the reason I wanted to just bring this up was that for generative AI, it wasn't like a very smooth exponential journey that we had from the beginning. So we had our fallbacks, we had certain difficult hard truths that we had to face, but we overcame all of that and we came to this point. Now, if you look at this is definitely a good thing because the technology is evolving, it's changing continuously. But at the same time, as an enterprise organization, imagine now, say that you are building an application with Java or Python. Imagine that language or the framework keep on changing every 2 months, where you start building something and there's something new comes up. If that starts happening, it's going to be very inconvenient. Because you build something, the next day something else will come up, will make everything that you did obsolete. So that is also a challenge that organizations are facing in that generative AI space. Now that is one of the challenges, but if you look at the current enterprise landscape, whether it's a large organization or a small organization, even a startup, this is how it looks like. So we started building generative AI applications probably in 2023, 2024. And we have maybe a couple of applications which are already in production, which are creating value for us also. But if you look at most of our applications, they're in that POC or the proof of concept stage. I mean, with Gen AI and just what we heard even in the previous session, creating a POC or getting the first count out is extremely easy because there's a lot of AI tools, there's a lot of resources out there. It's extremely simple. But once you build that application to give maybe like 70% of what you want, taking it from that 70% to 95%, which is needed in production, that is the most challenging part. So we call this, there was this term I heard in one of the sessions that I attended a few months ago, we call it the POC purgatory. Because all these POCs that we are building, they are sort of stuck in a loop where we are trying to get it to go into production level, but every time we do something, there's something that doesn't go right. So this is sort of the situation that we are stuck in, and the reason this is happening is mainly due to these 6 problems. So the first problem is, if you look at an organization, if you look at a large organization, you could have multiple teams working on Gen AI. Because everyone wants to have Gen AI in their applications. If you have 100 applications, at least 50 of those teams will be trying to implement Gen AI in their applications. So what happens here is, when all those teams are working on Gen AI in like a fragmented way in their own teams, the efforts get replicated. So whatever the R&D that you do, whatever the efforts that you put in, and just because this space is extremely dynamic like we saw, it's going to be very fragmented. So if you take one team in one particular project, they are building AI, what's using agents. There could be another team who's trying out something with MCP. There could be another team who's comfortable with RAG, so they are sticking to that. So right now, in most organizations, even if it's a startup or a large organization, these efforts are fragmented, which is one of the major challenges that we are facing. Then the second challenge is the vendor lock-in and the model constraints. Now, when I say vendor lock-in, when we started playing around with Gen AI, we know OpenAI was the first to come to market. So we started playing with OpenAI APIs. And then more and more we started working on that. Our applications got sort of like blended in with that model provider's infrastructure. So if it's Azure, we put in Azure vector stores, Azure searches, and everything was on Azure. If it was Google, all our applications had all Google components built in. And now the problem is, now every day you see very, very interesting models coming up. You had DeepSeek coming up. You know, every day it's going to keep on evolving. But when you get this infrastructure into your application, it's going to be very tough for you to switch. Say that tomorrow you have like an absolutely great model coming out, extremely cheap. But if you want to switch your existing application to that particular model, then that's going to be a huge effort. You have to go and change your SDKs, change all your code bases. If you have 100 applications, you have to go and make that change 100 times. So that's another challenge that we are facing. Then the third one is basically with industry standard frameworks. So again, when you looked at the POCs, we were at like 60%, 65%. But for us to get it to that 95%, we need to start bringing in these frameworks, which I'll talk about a bit later. Then the fourth problem is, this is actually one of the biggest nightmares that our chief information security officers are having these days, is not having centralized governance. Like for us at Cisco, I know we struggled a lot because Cisco being a Fortune 500 organization, they're extremely cautious with security. And when they're using generative AI, I mean, this is very new, like this is a very new space. We still don't know like the exact depths and breadths of Gen AI, what could happen. So when we started building these use cases, they were extremely cautious to open these things up because if something goes wrong, it's going to create huge financial and legal implications. So not being able to have this centralized governance is also a major challenge that we are facing in terms of taking applications from POC into production. Because POC, it's fine, it's just a demo, cool demo that's there. But when you go to production, if someone tries to break it and get something out, then you are legally viable for that. Then the fifth one is, whatever the applications that you build with AI, they are just part of the solution. So you build a cool Gen AI application or Gen AI service that has to get integrated with an existing application to give you value. That has to get integrated with your website, has to get integrated with your application. Then only users can use it and create value. And then the last one is, which is one of the interesting ones which we spoke a little earlier, that the use cases that we are working right now has a bit of a narrow scope. So we have a lot of RAG agents. We have agents that could give answers based on documents. But that's not exactly what we need. We need more for it to create value. So with that, if we take one by one of these problems and try to see how we can overcome these challenges. So if you look at this particular screen, now you can see 3 different applications here. You can see a RAG-based HR assistant. You can see a LLM-based PO extraction, where you pass documents and get information out. Then you also see RAG-based IT service assistant. But if you closely look at these diagrams, for all these applications you can see, even though they're built separately, even though they're built in vertical silos, you can clearly see they have very common components. You have the model and the prompt configuration layer. That is common for all 3 applications. Then you have the model integration, basically how you talk to the model. That is also common, because it's the same model that you're talking to. It's a common component. Even if you look at the 2 RAG applications, the RAG logic, again, common for both the applications. Now, what if you can take these components out, the common components out, and build a centralized platform? So say that you have 10 applications. You don't have to create 10 code bases with all those components replicated all over, but you build a single centralized layer where you bring in all the components. You go and create your applications there. Then you basically, for the application, you can say, for my first application, this is the prompt, this is the model. Then from like a set of reusable services, you can go and say, I want to build a RAG service. So you wire it up and you have an application. So basically, initially, if you have to build a RAG assistant, if it takes, say, 1 week, with this platform, you can just log in. You can create an application. You can get the services that you want, write your models on the platform itself, get an application running within just a couple of hours. Now, the beauty of this is, if you want to build 100 more applications, the time it takes to develop those applications are going to be significantly reduced. And then if you look at the next challenge, which was the vendor lock-in and the model constraint, now imagine the model integration layer that we had in the platform, we make it model agnostic. So now, like, if there's a new model, you don't have to go and integrate that new model into all your 100 applications, but you create a single layer which can talk to all different models out there. You can talk to Amazon Bedrock, you can talk to Azure OpenAI, you can talk to GCP Vertex. So you create that central layer. So whenever there's a new model coming up, for the users, it's just logging into the platform and changing a configuration. So just by click of a button, now you can start using the latest model. Because now, like if I share one of the experiences that we had, I think back in 2024, beginning of 2024, we were working on one of the RAG assistants, and it was not giving us the results that we wanted. We tried so hard, we changed the prompts, we did so much, but we were not able to get the outputs. But then in a week, Gemini launched their Gemini 1.5 Pro version. We were initially working with 1.0. They launched 1.5. And just for the fun of it, we just swapped the model. And instantly, it started giving us the results we want. Because from the model provider side, they are improving their models as we speak. So we should be able to integrate whatever the latest thing. We shouldn't be working with one of the older models. We should always try to integrate whatever the latest models that are out there if you want to get that 100% or 95% accuracy. So having a platform like this makes this process so much easier. Then if you look at the next one, which is about industry standard frameworks. Now again, this is an interesting part where building a POC, you have something in GenAI called prompts. You guys have all heard about it, right? The way that we give instructions to generative AI models. Prompting, prompt engineering, everyone's clear on that, right? Yes? Okay, cool. So when it comes to prompting, now there are different ways that you can write the prompt. So you can just go and just give some instructions to LLM model. It will give you some output. But it's not always going to be what you want. But in the industry, there are certain frameworks or industry standard techniques. Have you guys heard of stuff called Ryzen framework, Focus, Race? Anyone who has heard about it? No? Cool. So basically what this frameworks does is, it gives you a standard way of giving instructions to your LLM models. So if you take Ryzen, for RAG applications, it's absolutely great. So basically, you give your prompt in a way that Ryzen is you have a role, you have instructions, you have steps, you have the end goal, and you have an arrowing. So these are all tried and tested frameworks. But with RAG application, when you write the prompt this way, it's going to give you the answers in a more accurate manner. So what we did was, we did the R&D on these frameworks. We tried and understood what are the frameworks that works for different applications. We brought it into the platform. So we said, if you are building a RAG application, this is the template how you should write your prompt. So now users didn't have to go and find the ways to write the prompt or make it creative. They had a set of instructions where they can simply look at it and give those particular steps. Now with this, we also not just brought it into the platform and made it easier, but we also shared the R&D that we did so everyone can leverage those capabilities. So we also brought in stuff like prompt versioning, because prompting is like an iterative thing. You have to first start with your prompt, and then you have to go on like 10, 15 rounds to get what you want. But when you do that, if you don't have a versioning mechanism, now say that you are getting answers for like 80 of the questions that you are having, and you want to get to 90, you change the prompt, but then now it's only asking 70. So you want to roll back. So if you don't have that versioning built in, you might have to keep the copies of the prompts, you might have to keep it in some sort of a backup. But now on the platform, that is already handled. Just by clicking on a switch, you can go back to the previous prompt. So we had stuff like prompt evaluations coming in, model evaluations, model comparisons. We built all that into the platform. Then the next challenge is no centralized governance. But by bringing in the centralized platform, that made it so much easier for us to build a layer on the platform itself where we can centralize and monitor everything that goes in and out of the platform. So by bringing in this layer, all the inputs that are coming in, all the outputs that are going out from these GenAI applications, we can monitor them, we can sanitize them, we can see if there's any unwanted content, we can do PII redaction, if there's any customer information, we can redact them. So we brought in that centralized piece. So with this, we were able to resolve the challenge of governance as well. Then if you go on to the next challenge, which is these GenAI applications, now they're on the platform, but they have to get integrated with other applications or other platforms. So for this, what we did was, we basically brought in a centralized API layer. So now all the integrations of GenAI applications are standardized. They're all integrated through REST APIs. And we have the necessary authentications and authorizations in place. And then we can simply integrate them. Then another thing that, that recently happened for us. So initially when we started this off, we had like a synchronous mechanism of integration where you have the question, say that you've integrated it to your website. You have a question coming in from that website. Then what we do is we take the request into the platform. We find the answer using RAG or whatever the mechanism. We wait until that is done, and in the response of that request, we give that out. But recently, we were building this application for sales consultants in Sysco. And we had about 10,000 users who's going to be using this platform. And then we wanted to integrate this with Salesforce, because Salesforce is a platform that sales consultants are used to. And then we faced this issue where on Salesforce, you can only have 5 concurrent requests together, which goes beyond 5 seconds. So with generative AI, of course, you can't ensure that it's going to respond within 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Based on the request, based on the tokens, it's going to be different. So this was a major challenge that we faced when we started integrating. We couldn't do the synchronized mechanism anymore. Then what we did was, we looked at an asynchronous process, where when the question comes in, from the platform, we will accept it. We'll say, thank you very much, I got your request, I'm working on it. Then once the process is done, we send back the request, send back the response rather. So we built in that asynchronous process in the platform. We didn't build it in application. We built it in the platform. And then later on, when we got another requirement to do the same thing, the component was already there. So we didn't have to go back and build these capabilities or copy and paste those components into the new application. Now it's available on the platform, so anyone can start using it from the get-go. Then, if you are looking at the last challenge, the AI use cases being narrow and low impact use cases. Now, if I explain this situation with like a generic example. Now I know just a few hours ago, you guys had your lunch at Cinnamon Life. And this is one of the latest hotels that are out there. So when they were opening up, So they wanted to probably give like a really great service to the customers, right? So they bent ahead, they were scouting for all the best chefs out there, and they found someone who's worked in a Michelin star restaurant who's absolutely great with what she does. And they got her down. Then when she came down, they wanted to, like put her into a restaurant and basically cater to their customers. But then at that point, they realized this chef is specialized only on desserts. So for a restaurant, you need to have a lot of different things. You need to have Indian cuisine, Chinese cuisine, and all that. But this chef was really great, but they can only do desserts. Now, if you look at the situation, this is like just having a RAG bot in your organization. So if you have a RAG bot that can give you answers based on the documents and information, like absolutely great, it's really good, but it can only do that particular component. But what if you have multiple chefs now? One person who can do desserts, one person is good at Indian food, one person in Italian, one person for Chinese. Now you have 4 specialized chefs, one person in charge of one area. Now the situation is a bit better, so you have 4 different people who's doing all the work. But now at this situation also, what if you get a lot of requirements coming in? So the customers are placing orders, and one customer put an order for a pizza, and that order goes into the pastry, the dessert chef. And another customer puts an order for a naan, that goes into the Chinese chef. So if that's happening, then still, even though you have that specialized agents or specialized people, it's going to be tough for you to manage. But what if you brought in a head chef? So now this guy is there. This guy will take in all the requests, will understand based on the requirement who this should go to, and then we'll route the requirement to that particular person. Now this is the same thing that we are trying to do with agents. So with agents, what we are building is, we are building specialized agents for specialized requirements. So if you take RAG, a RAG agent will be specifically built for a specific requirement. Then if you want to get information from a database, you will create a database agent. If you want to get information from like an API or do an action, you'll build an API agent. So all these agents at the bottom, they are what we call specialized agents. Then we bring something called an orchestrate agent on top, where when the user gives the requirement, now like on the application, we don't want the user to say, use the API agent and do this, or use the database agent and do this. The users are just going to give their questions in, but the orchestrator will decide this question should go into this particular agent. So this is the high-level concept of agents that we are building, AI agents. And now this part also, we brought it into the platform. So platform initially had reusable AI components. Now we converted them into reusable AI agents. So now if you have an application or a requirement, you go and pick which agents that you want. You go and configure them on the UI. You create your orchestrator. You expose the API. You have an application running just within a couple of hours. So that is the beauty of centralization, where rather than you trying to replicate, because this space is continuously evolving, right? You can't have like a certain thing created and then use that for other stuff, because the space is evolving. By having a centralized platform, you can bring in all the new things that are happening into the platform. You can make it reusable. You can make it extendable. And for everyone to just come on board and do it. And then that's not all, because now the platform what we built is with like a very intuitive UI. Now you don't even need developers to come and build certain generative AI agents. Even business users can come and do it. So it's not like a no-code, low-code platform where you need to understand what you are doing. For this particular requirement for our organization, we've given them templates. If you want to build a RAG agent, these are the things that you have to do. You just have to come and write your prompts, just put your models in. We already put the default ones in. Even with the default one, you can get a working agent out. So this is what we've done with centralization. And this has helped us transform most of our initiative, which was stuck at a POC stage, and take them into production. So this is basically to talk with architecture. But another important part I just wanted to cover is, you can have a great architecture, but I think just as we discussed in the previous session also, you need a really great team to build it. So now for Sysco, it's like we have like 2,000 people in Sysco's technology arm working all across the world. But the platform that we built was built by just 10 engineers in Sri Lanka. So they built the entire centralization. They built vertical applications on top of that. But it was built by a very small team. But what made us successful in this is picking the right team or having the right people to do that. Because again, the space is evolving, like we discussed earlier. We need to have people who not just understands AI, who are not just specialized in AI, or who are not just specialized in full stack development. We want people who understands both. Because whatever the AI applications that you are doing, that has to get integrated with like an existing application. Whatever the applications that you are building will eventually have to get integrated with the AI component. So you need people who understand both of them really well, so you can have that flexibility from the beginning. Then you also need to have people who are thought leaders, who have the ability to learn, and also who are always thinking and acting agile. Because these use cases, if you take a lot of time to build it and take it to the users, then the bus would have gone. Because now space again keeps on evolving. So whatever you build, you want to quickly get it out to the users and then get their feedback and iterate. And then this final point that I have here, this is again another important thing, because this generative AI space is quite new for most of the users that are out there. So the team who's building this infrastructure, the technologists who are building these components, they also need to have great communication skills and stakeholder management, where they can communicate what they are building into their users. Because if the users don't understand what the team is building or what the expectation is, that's going to create conflicts. So the team that we are building should be able to communicate that to the users as well. Then with the team, you have the architecture, you have the team, but you also need a great process to manage this. So process that what we are doing is we have this thing called the generative AI innovation funnel, where everything that we do, we put it to the funnel. So right now we have about 70 concepts we've tried. Everything's on the funnel. Once the concept comes in, we evaluate the concept, then we decide whether we want to build a POC. So when the POC is done, we again evaluate and see, does the POC make sense? Is it creating value? Is it doing what it needs to be doing? And then if that's the case, we will put our efforts into putting it to production. So right now, the developments that we are doing, it's not a whole lot chaotic like it used to be. So right now, it's all structured. We see what's going on. We have stage gate processes, and we can manage the development that way. So right now, we have about 70 concepts. We built about 40 POCs, and we pushed about 20 applications into production. So those are the three components in terms of taking your generative AI journey from like a POC stage into a production level or to generate value. Those are the key things that actually helped us and might help you guys also in terms of taking it to the next level. So these are some of the key takeaways I just wanted to quickly touch upon. I know we spoke about a lot of things. We talked about the generative AI evolution. We spoke about the challenges. We spoke about the agentic architecture. We spoke about process and teams. But if I sum it up to just 5 key takeaways, the first one is, whatever you build centralization and reusability. Because the space is evolving, you need to make sure that everything that you build is centralized so you can easily change and adapt. And the next one is, solve for flexibility, not just functionality. You have to be model agnostic, you have to be vendor agnostic, you have to have those capabilities, because you don't know which provider will bring in the best solution out there tomorrow, so you have to have that flexibility as well. And the third one is, usually when you say standardization, as developers, we don't like it because it's going to bring in additional processes. But in this case, bringing standardization really helps you. It will help you get to your goal faster. And the fourth one POC is not going to change the game, but if you can build set of agents who are orchestrated nicely, who can do that complete operation, that's what you need. Then with all that technology pieces in, people and process is what matters most. Because you can build all this great technology, but if you have the right people and the right process in place, that's what's going to help you push all that applications or whatever that is in the POC level into a production stage. So if I just sum it up to 3 words, centralization, reusability, and empowering people. Those are the 3 key things that we need to worry about. And that's what I want to share today. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed sharing our journey with you guys. And if you have any questions, we can go for that.
Hi. Actually, it's nice that you presented about retrieval augmented generation. So it is all about just to reduce hallucination and bringing in authentic information, right? That's true. But now I think RAG itself getting augmented to CAG, cache augmented generation, right? So could you please educate us on that a little bit? This will be great, right?
Yes, so RAG that started off initially now that has evolved into multiple stages. So you have CAG, you have graph-based RAG, there's multiple versions of RAG that is coming out. So in terms of technology based on use cases, there are different ways that we need to address it. So with like if you take an example, now for a RAG, what we do is we take the information. So basically like whatever the information that you want to use for your bot to give answers, you break it down into smaller pieces, you put it in a vector store. Based on that, when the question comes in, you find the relevant information and you give the answer out. But when it comes to an enterprise level application, this simple process won't be helpful. Because when an enterprise level, you are not going to have very structured documents. Like if you look at POCs that we are building, we'll just put like a single document in, we'll get the answers, it will work perfectly. But in an enterprise ecosystem, you have a lot of unstructured documents, you have not just documents, you have videos, you have audios, you have different sorts of files which you want to embed into the knowledge base. So that's where all these concepts of CAG and graph-based RAG and everything that comes up, because for you to give that value, for you to give not just 70%, for you to give 100% or 95% of accuracy, those are the concepts that are coming out. So those will get adopted into the ecosystem as well. So right now the RAG that we have on the platform is a combination of CAG and graph-based RAG as well, which is combining all the key capabilities of this ecosystem to give answers. So that's what we built. Anything else? All right, thank you so much, everyone. Really enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's a wrap for the engineering track on day 1. And I hope you all enjoyed the sessions and found them inspiring. A big thank you to all the speakers and to you, audience, for being so engaged throughout the session. And now it's time for a tea break. Please head over to the 7th floor to grab your tea, and don't forget to check out the stalls outside, and also the gratitude wall will be there, and don't forget to express yourself as well. So yeah, see you all back in the main forum for the evening session. Thank you very much, everyone.